Well, hello again. I decided that each week, starting this week, I'm going to be putting together a quick little summary of the previous week's quiz so that you can get an idea of if you missed anything, why you missed it. Most of you did pretty well on the quiz, but there were a couple of questions in particular that you might want to figure out why the answer was what it was. So the first question should have been easy because what you want to do when you have a problem like x over 7 equals 3/4 is to cross multiply. And when you do cross multiply, you always look for the stuff that's diagonally across from each other. You notice I took 7 times 3, then I divided by 4. The one you divide by is always what's diagonally across from the variables. So 21 divided by 4 ends up being 5.25. That's the first answer. It's definitely a little harder on the second problem, but it still is just cross-multiplying. What you do is you look for the stuff that's diagonally across from each other, and you show what happens when you multiply that. So I took 5 times 3x plus 4, which is diagonally across from it, equals 2 times 7, that gives you the 14 I put over on the right. Now what I did is I distributed out the parentheses, 15x plus 20, and I've got basically an Algebra 1 problem. I've got to subtract 20 and divide by 15, and you do end up getting negative 0.4 for the final answer. The two questions that were probably the most missed on here were the ones that were just yes/no questions, where it asked you, are these figures similar? And of course, you got a 50-50 chance of guessing them right, but there were a lot of people that guessed both of them wrong. So I want to show you what you have to do to work these out. What you want to do is to see if the corresponding sides are proportional. And that means if you made a fraction out of them, if you divided them, are they the same thing? Now, when you do that, you've got to match up long with long and short with short. So I put 35 together with 21 because that's the longer side of each of these rectangles. And then 30 goes together with 18. Those are the shorter sides. You notice I divided both of those and I got 1.6 repeating. Since those are the same, that's why this one's got to be yes. On the other hand, on the next one, I divided the longest side of each of these trapezoids, I divided the shortest side of each of the trapezoids, and I divided the medium side of each of the trapezoids, and I got three completely different answers. And because they're not the same, that's why this one's no. Even if two of them were the same, but the third one was different, that would still be no. So you have to look at what matches up, divide them. If they're the same, it's yes. If they're not, it's no. And then you had two-story problems. The first one here says the state of Iowa is 310 miles long and 200 miles wide. And a map of Iowa is 8 inches wide. What's the length of Iowa on the map? And you had four different choices. If you think about it for a minute, there really is only one of those choices that's even a particularly reasonable answer. But we're going to figure out how that goes as we go through this. I'm going to talk about two of them that I know for sure are not reasonable answers, though. 5.16 doesn't really make any sense because I gave you the shortest side on the map, the width of it, and that means my answer had better be bigger than 8. The other one that doesn't really make any sense at all is 7,750, because that's just enormous and way bigger than what I'm given. So right off, I know it's got to be one of the middle two. And we're going to do this problem by cross-multiplying also. The thing that's important when you do that is you've got to match up stuff that goes together. So I did in the real state, we have 310 miles long and 200 miles wide. Then on the map, I need to make sure wide goes in the same place it did with the state. That's why I put 8 inches wide down on the bottom. We're trying to figure out how long it is, which is why x inches long is going to go on top. And if you do cross multiply, we get 12.4. Now, there's other ways you could write the fractions. You could, for instance, put 310 over x equals 200 over 8. But one way or another, the 310 and the x have to go together, the 310 and the 200 have to go together. And as long as both going up and down and across the numbers have stuff in common, you're going to get the right answer. And here that is 12.4. The very last problem, I think most of you found easier than the one about Iowa. Here again, you just write a little equation and cross multiply. Here I put the two heights together, 5 over h, and I put the two lengths together, 8 over 24. You actually could just look at that second fraction and realize to get from the top to the bottom, you multiply by 3, and so 5 times 3 is 15. You can also cross multiply, which is what I've got there, but either way, 15 is your answer. So that's what last week's quiz was. You'll be doing a quiz coming up for this coming week as well, and good luck with it.